Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for coming to my channel. Today we have a wonderful guest, Tony Rodriguez. Thank you very
Hi,
much, Tony, for coming to my channel. How are
thank
you?
you for having me. I'm very well. Thanks for having me.
And I have interviewed Tony about 2 or 3 years ago to write this book. So maybe many of my followers already know Tony. They like your blue eyes. People say, oh, Tony's the gentleman that has beautiful eyes. That interview in English was taken down by YouTube, and I got a warning, so it's not in my channel anymore. So I would like to interview again. So Tony, I read this book about 3 or 4 years ago, and I couldn't sleep. It was so interesting, and so can you briefly explain about the experience?
20 years, I'll try to put it in a few paragraphs here. Um, when I was young, came in contact with somebody, a child whose father was high up in the United States black programs or corporate level programs, or whatever you want to call it, the military, so high on a high level that's working with extraterrestrials. And a few days later, I was abducted. Best I can tell April 15th, 1982. I was 10 years old, and they abducted me and kept me in something called a 20 and back. I lived for 20 years, 6 or 7 years on Earth, and then moved into space, into the secret space program. And then they put me back the same night. And that's where it sounds really unbelievable. But that was the technology and that was the experience. I woke up the next day. I felt like I'd been gone 20 years. I was taken on a Thursday, April 15th, 1982, and I woke up the next morning and got up and went to school. I was still in my 10-year-old body. My parents had no idea I was gone. But in that time, I was elsewhere in a dilation along that I lived. There were two of me. So I lived for 20 years. The first stop was a place called Inyo, California, and that was advanced remote viewing and psychoenergetics research in a secret program there. And then I went to Seattle for a week or two, and then to Peru, where I was a field operational psychic. They were giving me drugs. I was at 10, 11, 12 years old in that time. And we were flying plane loads of contraband into Colombia from Peru. Then from there, I went back to Seattle and I was abused and I was privately owned in Seattle. And when I no longer could serve my purpose there, they said, in their words, we're going to sell you to the military. And they did. And they took me and dropped me off, and two men gave me a shot, a needle. And I was about 16 years old, I want to say 15 or 16 years old at that time. And I woke up on a spacecraft going to the moon and went to the back of the moon. The same base that I described also lined up with Niara Isley's testimony. So it was the same exact base that we both described the trapezoid base without knowledge of each other. And from there, I went to Mars as a support soldier in a program there. And Mars was very much inhabited by people, underground cities, and other extraterrestrials and indigenous insects that live there. And when that program was canceled, I was retrained on Mars in a school by a large white gray looking ET and retrained. I did ship maintenance and I was shipped off to something called the Ceres Colony Corporation. And that's the book is called Ceres Colony Cavalier. And it's a small planetoid, a dwarf planet in between Mars and the asteroid belt. And inside that asteroid are, inside of it in giant caverns inside are cities, about a quarter million people of European descent that live inside there. And I lived there for about 10 years, better than a decade. And I was a ship maintenance on a spacecraft that went, and I was promoted to cargo engineer. And I was a cargo engineer on a ship that did interstellar flights, trading with extraterrestrials and coming back to Earth. And I did that for years at the end there. And then they put me back. And I woke up the next day back in 1982 with the memories erased, but I was different. I was older in my mind, I guess. I was different, and my life veered and changed course. In 2015, I got my memories back. I got an MRI scan. I was having headaches, and so they checked me out, and I had an MRI scan. And about 10 days later, after that scan, all the memories came back. I was completely devastated and sought help, and I got in touch with Dr. Michael Salla. There were other people coming out with the secret space program information at the time, and he researched me, and I started to find the places that I remembered on Earth that I'd never been in my life. So, I can say that I'd never been to Peru, but I know my way around Peru. So all the memories came back, and they were real places, and a lot of the things that I've researched since then have panned out. So I've been fortunate to have a great deal of evidence.
Wow. Yes, I was impressed when you said that your school mate or friend or not friend, his father made you abducted. And so I realized that he was you said he was Illuminati, but this Illuminati is a human being, but they were working with aliens, ETs.
Yes,
That's a proof, right?
yes,
Wow. So, but I think before going to all these places in California and Peru and China Lake and Seattle, I think first you were taken on the spaceship first.
yes. The first stop. So I was taken out of my bedroom into a base. I don't know if it where it was, but I was taken into a facility.
But when
Uh,
you say we were taken, it was like a teleportation into the spaceship, I think. No?
it was instant. They carried me to the foot of my bed. There was a flash of light.
Yeah.
A gray extraterrestrial. I woke up in the night with a gray
Yeah,
standing
yeah,
over me, and three or four short reptilians walked around the side of my bed and
yeah.
grabbed. I was paralyzed somehow. And they grabbed me out of my bed and carried me to the end of the bed, and there was a bright flash of light, and I was unconscious after that. And I woke up naked on a table, like a stainless steel table. And the room was round and gray, like cement, but it was rounded. The doorway was round, and there were ETs there. There was a tall gray and a short grays there, and other ETs walking. But I couldn't see. I didn't have my glasses. I wore glasses at the time. To be fair, I couldn't see a lot. And
So you can assume that's a spaceship.
or a base or an underground base. I mean, I don't I understand that it's important what I describe, and I don't want to say it if I don't know it for sure.
Okay,
And so
okay.
I really don't know where it was.
Okay, okay. But you
So
were
I saw that
surrounded,
room
but you're surrounded by aliens.
by ETs. No humans.
No humans.
None.
And they said they're going to borrow your consciousness.
I asked, first I was scared and I said, "Are you going to hurt me?" And they were very reassuring and they had a way to control your emotions. So I was panicked for a minute and then they did something and I was calm. And they said, "We're not going to hurt you." We didn't, and I was happy because I wanted ETs to exist. And I said, "Well, why did you take me? Why am
Mhm,
I here?"
mhm.
And he said, "We want to borrow your consciousness." That was the exact words. And for 20 years. And I said, I can't do that. I'll be gone. My mom will grow up. My sister will grow up. I can't be gone for 20 years from my family. He said, no, no, no. We can time travel. They explained it. They really sold it. They talked it up. And he said, the best thing anybody can give you is more time for your life. You're going to live longer than you would have, 20 extra years. And I said, what am I going to do? And they said, we don't know. We'll test you and see what job you're best for, and then we'll give you that job. That's what he said. Um, and so I agreed. So they had to get my permission. They did ask my permission, and I agreed. I was 10, but I did agree. And then they laid me down and did a medical procedure. And I woke up with no memory of where I came from. And I woke up in Inyokern, in the building that I found that is still there.
Wow.
That was my next memory after that procedure. And I had no memory of where I could barely talk. It was hard for me to remember
Mm,
English. It was
mm.
a few days before I could speak. So I
Wow.
believe I was cloned. I believe it's a form of cloning that they move
Ah,
consciousness into a clone, and then at the end of 20 years, they either put it back in time or they just kill it
okay.
and your consciousness return. I don't understand. I really, there's a lot I don't know about the
Yeah.
procedure.
But you
But
didn't know that you were going to be putting clone, but afterwards we realized that it was a clone at the end.
the
At the
reason I
end.
say that, yeah,
Mm.
the reason I say that is because when they put me back, I lost the memories of the 20 years,
Yeah.
but I had my memories back of mom and dad and my 0 to 10.
Yeah. Mm-mm.
My early years I had, so it's like I left that body and those memories,
Mm-hmm.
put me in a blank slate body, and then I lived for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
When they put me back, those memories were gone, and I had these memories waiting for me. So I deduce from that that it was a clone, that they
So,
just moved my consciousness or my chi, my soul, whatever you want to call it. They moved it into the clone, and it lived. I also remember the 20 years first. So I don't remember them back and forth. I remember the 20 years in one go and then living from 10 until now. So that's the order that it is in my mind, which would also support that it was a cloned existence and that I lived it first.
mm, okay. So, so it's like living in two bodies, one consciousness living in two separate bodies,
Yes.
completely
And
separate body. Mm.
since I've gone public in 2016,
Mm-hmm.
I've had thousands of people reach out to me and tell me they suspect they've been through the same thing. And that's one
Thousands
of the
of people.
thousands of people I've interviewed. I've done
Thousands.
personal consultations with over 2,500 people. And
2,500. Wow.
yes, and in the last 10 years. And um, that's one of the things I look for. So I
That's
always ask them,
250 people a year.
yes.
25. You're busy
Well, I
interviewing
don't do
these
them
people.
anymore. I quit doing them. I quit doing them. There were so many. Every time I do an interview, I'd get five people that would could talk to me in a week. And I was doing hundreds of interviews. Not only did your interview get taken down off YouTube, but I did like 400 interviews
Wow.
in those years, and
Yeah.
most of them are gone. I went behind a paywall. I have a Patreon, and that's where I teach my remote viewing, and
Yeah.
I do all my shows on Patreon.
Yeah.
So there's a paywall, and those don't get removed. When you got to pay $5 a month, um, those are easier. Those are easier to protect.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but to get back to what I was saying about those people, when I talk to other people, I always ask them, when did it start? When did it start? And they'll say, well, I got this and that. And I say, well, when do you think you were taken? And they'll say, well, give me a date. And then in my mind, I add 20 years to it. And I say, well, what happened then? So if it's 1990, I'll say, what happened in 2010? And almost always, well, about 60%, about two-thirds of the people I've worked with, about two-thirds had a life change the same way that I did. So when I was taken, I was a straight A student. I was in the top 5% of the school academically. I was an outstanding student. And I immediately went to D's and E's after that, and I dropped out of school later on. When the 20 years was up in my life, so I was taken in 1982. In 2000, so there were 2 years of temporal flights. It's a long story. But essentially, 20 years later, I woke up one day and I kept saying to myself, it's over, it's over. And it was like I got my smarts back. Like I immediately straightened out.
Wow.
To give an example, I had a terrible time emotionally. I was more emotionally stupid. I couldn't keep a girlfriend all through high school and through my 20s. I was emotionally wrecked. Girls would like me. I would date girls, but I didn't have the emotional mind, and they would always just leave. I couldn't keep a girlfriend in couple months, and wouldn't work. I just wasn't there. At the end of the 20 years in 2000, I woke up one day and I felt like a new person. And I cleaned and I got everything together. I go, what's going on? Like the other, essentially the clone died. 6 months later, I met my wife and I stayed with her 23 years. I had the emotional abilities back of like the health of it. So while I was doing it, it was like there were half of me. And this is the exact same thing that I see in people I've worked with as well. When you really, because the only thing I really offer them is to write everything down in a timeline and look for cycles like that. But I see people that their life gets derailed after contact. and then 20 years later, their life gets back together.
You mean these two people, they were in the 20 years back program, or not necessarily? They were all
Or
in the
something like it. Something like it, yes.
That many? Are they
Oh,
all
yes.
Americans or?
Well, no, people from all over the world. People from all over the world,
Even
mostly,
Asian people?
yes.
Wow. Not
So I
Japanese.
haven't had people
Ah,
from,
Japan.
the Asian countries because I haven't done shows there.
Uh-huh.
But Asians that are in America, yes, and in Hawaii, Asians that grew up in Hawaii at a young age, yes. Um, a lot of Europeans, and what I found is that depending on where somebody comes from, it also denotes what program is likely to have taken them.
Wow.
So when we see people taken from the United States and Canada and Europe, it's usually a military program with humans that are in charge.
Mhm.
When we see people taken from elsewhere in the world, in South America, and they're taken by a program that have extraterrestrials in charge.
Wow.
And places like Australia and elsewhere around the world, it could be there's a third category that's like everybody else because I believe we're being visited by any of trillions of races that they can just come down and interact with us and leave for any number of reasons, and they have different levels of technology that they do.
But you mean
That
the third group is also secret space program like 20 years back?
No, the third group is everybody else.
Okay. So
So
why
one
are they
group,
still alive? Why don't the ETs just kill them?
I
Why
love
they
this
return?
question. I get this question a lot.
Sorry. But I'm so curious.
チャンネル登録と高評価をお願いします。